Welcome to Contemporary Black Voices, where we take on the most important issues confronting Black America. Today's topic is the 2024 election takeover. You've heard the Republican nominees say things like the 2020 election was rigged and this will be the last time that you'll have to vote. Really? I don't know how that's going to work out. These statements are geared towards putting doubt in the minds of the voters and the American voting system. They want you to question the validity of the American electoral system and thus a corrupt America. Notice voting rolls are being purged and the requests are being made right now to have voting monitors at the polling sites, for which they are being recruited now. Also notice that this is only happening in states that have Republican governors. To help us in our discussion today is New York Times bestselling author Caleb Alexander, and our other two panelists, the lovely Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell and the writer Frederick Williams, are both out on assignments today. I'm your host, Chris Dawkins, and I'll be your host for today. Now, don't forget, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you are alerted when the posts or when we have new posts. Now let's get started into our topic, the 2020 election. The question becomes is, first of all, I think we got to start with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. What happened at that particular time is we got a Voting Rights Act passed to be able to say that we had southern states like Arizona, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi, all of those states who were bad actors and making these Jim Crow laws like, if you can tell how many jelly beans is in the jar, then we'll let you vote. And of course, you know, nobody can get the answer. So fast forward to 2013, then you had Shelby versus Holder, which was Eric Holder. And what those states began to say is that, look, we've been really good for the last 40 years. You know, we don't think we should be under this, under the federal government's thumb anymore, and we think you should let us out. So what happened is the Supreme Court agreed with those states and let them out. And that brings us to the point to where we are today.
Right. States with a lot more power to regulate voting.
Right.
You know what I mean? And which is particularly concerning in a state like Texas, or in Florida, even more broadly. But in traditional Southern Dixie states like Texas, it's extremely concerning. And so you see right now what's going on with the Attorney General, who's purging voter rolls currently.
Right.
So I think they primarily targeted Harris County, basically Houston, Bexar County, which is basically San Antonio, the state's two largest majority Latino counties, and they're attempting to purge 95,000 Hispanic American voters from the voting rolls. And so that's very, very concerning, very concerning.
Well, one of the other things they're doing is trying to disqualify the mail-in ballot and for insequential like data information. I don't know what all of that means, but they're trying to basically purge the mail order votes. So I don't know how that's going to work. So people really need to be vigilant and making sure that their voter registration is intact all the way up to, I guess, the deadline of voter registration to make sure that they're not purged. And if they should find that there are some inconsistencies, make sure that you get those corrected before the end of the voter registration.
Yeah, so one of what you, like what you mentioned, one of those tactics they're using is they're having the Kennedy go around, and he's trying to remove his name from the ballot in these various states, right? So the problem is the ballots, the mail-in ballots have already been printed and were about to be sent out. So now he's getting these different rulings saying, yes, his name needs to be ruling. These Republican judges are saying his name needs to be removed from the ballot, which is delaying mail order ballots. And it's primarily Democratic voters who vote early and vote through mail-in ballots. So the Republicans usually do a lot of same-day voting. Democrats do early voting and mail-order ballots. And so this is having an effect on getting those mail-order ballots out. So that's one of the other tactics that they're...
I'm just going to make a statement. I really don't understand Kennedy. I mean, he's a Democrat. No, I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, I don't know what the hell he is, okay?
Independent. Let's say he's independent. Okay.
Yeah. But the family is Democratic.
Right.
So the problem that you're talking about with the voter ballots and taking his name off or leaving it on or sending out the absentee, not the absentee, but the
both mail order
and absentee. The question becomes is he's hurting more Democrats by doing that than he would be hurting the Republicans.
Trump.
I know he endorsed Trump.
So that's purposeful. So Trump is actually having him do that. That's his role. That's his mission to disrupt the Democratic early vote and mail order vote. So that's how he's helping Trump. That's his mission. But I mean, they're doing everything. They're panicking. They're in panic mode. They're doing everything they can to influence this election, or basically steal this election. And so what they're doing in Florida, I mean, and they've done this all across the country, is just basically take over the elections boards,
right?
Take over the counting, and I mean, they put all the right pieces in place for this election to do what they couldn't do last election. And so,
but we should have been hollering back when Shelby versus Holder, when that was going on. And, I kind of remember, I think we did do a little bit of hollering, but of course it was on deaf ears because the Supreme Court had already said they agreed with those states. But now we see that those states who made their appeal to the Supreme Court are now, they said, well, 40 years, America has changed. Well, hell, really the thing is 200 years and America ain't changed.
And then at the time of that case, though, nobody anticipated Donald Trump, or nobody anticipated the Republican Party to become what it's become today. So that's the other thing about that ruling, you know what I mean? It's just nobody could have foreseen the takeover and then the destruction of the Republican Party and then the rise of this thing called MAGA, you know what I mean? So that's the other thing about that Shelby versus Holder case.
So what do you think when you go to a poll, and let's say you're going on voter day, and you see an older lady who's in line, and the lines, let's say, are massive, but they say you can't give them no water.
Right, which is another tactic.
Right. So what do you do?
What can you do, unless you want to get arrested? And I mean, how many, the question is, in some of your more Democratic counties, how much is the sheriff going to enforce that rule? You know what I mean? Or some of your Democratic-leaning cities, how much is the police chief going to have his officers enforce that rule? Not giving an older person standing out in line, maybe having issues with the heat, and not being able to treat them medically by giving them some water. You know what I mean? So that's the question. You know what I mean?
You bring up a good point. Maybe we should have the police chief and the county sheriff on the show, and be able to ask them that particular question. Because if you've got an older lady standing there, the one thing that I have kind of coined is that white people, especially, which are mainly Republicans, only act human. They don't act as a human being. As a human being, you have compassion for other people. There's some things that you would do, to be able to help other people. You see this lady in line, she's older, she wants to vote, she wants to exercise her right to vote, which she has a right to be able to do, and then you can't give her no water, and she needs water.
Right. So here, the problem we watch time and time again. These people will vote against their own interests. They'll cut off their nose despite their faith, despite the, you know what I mean? So even if they don't know whether this woman's going to vote Democrat or Republican, they're still not going to give her water because maybe the next person they give water to maybe voted Democrat. You know what I mean? So they are they're die hard. I mean, we've watched time and time and time again, right? When you talk about how heartless these folks are, we just had another tragedy, a shooting tragedy in Georgia, and they all said the same thing, came out, told the line. You know what I mean? Now's not the time to talk about it. Thoughts and prayers. You're not taking away my gun. So those people are very, very heartless. But I know we'll probably come back and address that in the next segment.
Okay. Well, let's take a break right now, and we'll be right back with our topic, the 2024 election takeover.